Hey everyone, you're listening to InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy. We're chatting about how to get the most out of life.
And covering a ton of interesting topics.
So there's sure to be something.
For just about everyone. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, and welcome to InfoQuench. I'm your host, Jeff.
And I'm Amy, and this is part 2 of 17 Stoic practices to add calm to your life.
What number did we end off on?
We ended off on 6, and so we've got to move through
We've got to move through, and I will try to be a little easy on the tangents.
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 All right, I would like to recognize the milestone of today. Today's Sunday, March 13th, and tomorrow, where we're from, in St. John, New Brunswick, the mandate for masks and all mandates actually associated with COVID-19 are being lifted. And interestingly enough, it was exactly 2 years ago today, on Friday, March 13th, I believe, that was the last day of school in our area before it closed because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So just an interesting milestone.
That is quite a milestone. Unbelievable that 2 years has passed.
I know.
And tomorrow will be the first day in, 2 years that we can walk outside without wearing a mask and feel okay about it.
Well, and some people are, trepidatious about it, and it'll
Rightfully
be an
so.
interesting time. I know one thing, though, I'm going to wear lipstick. Although my lipstick's probably 2 years old now, and maybe I should buy new lipstick, so scratch that. I might have to go buy new lipstick. But I'm going to start off this part 2 with a quote, and it's by our friend Epictetus, and we quote a lot of philosophers.
He's a buddy. He still owes me money, but okay, go ahead.
The quote is, "You become what you give your attention to."
Yes, that's true.
You always say it's true when I say a quote. You're so supportive that way.
But it is true, though. You do. What was the quote again? You become what you give your attention to. What exactly does that mean, though? So, okay, in life you give your attention to many different things, right?
Right, but it's what you spend your time on. Those moments are your life.
That's true.
You
wouldn't be doing them unless you enjoyed it, usually, right? If you're working on a car, for example, just for the sake of talking, and you're trying to get it going, your time is spent working on that car.
You're right. I mean, I don't know if either of us have ever worked on a car, but that's a great example. This reminds me, the other night I was talking to Jeff about how lucky we are with our appliances, because we have Kenmore appliances, and we moved into our house 12 years ago now, and we've not had an issue with any of them. Washer, dryer, stove, fridge, all work really, really well. Dishwasher, and then Jeff's knocked on wood.
I know I'm not a superstitious person.
Neither of us are superstitious, but he knocked on wood, and I said, I didn't think you were superstitious, and you said, I am when it comes to appliances.
That's right, I did say that without missing a beat, didn't I?
Yes, but it's not as though all the appliances broke down the next day. So, no. But again, we may need to walk.
But the element did go in our oven, and I fixed it all by myself.
I know
I'm not a very big fixer-upper guy, but I did. I went out and bought the right element. I did it all.
Did you happen to watch a YouTube video to make that happen?
I certainly did.
No, what did we do before YouTube?
Nothing. We just let our houses fall apart.
I just had a visual of somebody doing heart surgery with the YouTube video propped up beside them.
Actually, what we did is we learned what to do because there was no YouTube. That's what
right.
we did.
In the old days.
We read those things called books.
Speaking of the old days, we're still doing daylight savings time, and this weekend we had to spring our clocks forward. I still have to do it in my head that which way does the clock move?
I know.
Spring forward, fall back.
So we lose an hour of sleep.
Yes.
Which is not fun.
That's what old people say. It's always sleep lost.
I know.
It's not we lost.
We get more daylight.
Lost an hour to do something very fun and productive. No, it's someone stole an entire hour of our sleep.
Of our lives. Yeah, we could be working on that car.
But then in the fall, we're happy as can be because
there's more light and vitamin D from the sun, all that jazz.
Yeah, there's some reason they do it. And
right.
I get to run around the house and reset all the clocks. And then usually it takes me a few months to figure out how to reset the car clock.
Did you do it yet?
Not yet.
You started to and then It wasn't really cooperating,
I
was
wonder
it?
with our listeners if they also in their household have one person who's designated with that task every time the time changes. Because I'm that person
You're
in
that
our
person.
household. Watches.
I'm
We don't have
so
a lot of
thankful that
clocks,
our
but-
phone does it automatically. I mean, I don't know what I would do if it didn't.
Oh, I know. Really? What did people do before that? So let's just jump into our actual Stoic practices. So we're starting at number 7 for part 2, and it is to say only what isn't better left unsaid. So the thought around this is that people tend to normally speak about themselves. So even if they ask questions, a lot of times they do so with thinking ahead about the chance to jump in and talk about something that's related to them. And what ends up happening is they don't really listen to what's being said. They're too busy preparing what they're
they
going
wanna
to say
say.
next. And Stoics are very good at, listening and only adding to the conversation with meaningful information.
It's funny because I remember having conversations throughout my whole life where I had something I wanted to say in the conversation, and I didn't want to forget it. I didn't want to forget what I wanted to say, but I also wanted to give that person time to say what they were saying. And I would sometimes interject with what I wanted to say because I was so afraid I was going to forget what I was saying. Do you know what I'm saying?
I actually followed that whole
Did ya?
thread of, yes, I did.
Well,
I
how
did.
could you not? It made sense, right? Didn't it?
I've had that happen too, but even the fact that you're sitting there thinking about what you want to say, it takes
Means
away.
you're engaged.
It also takes away from listening to what the person is saying.
I don't know. I think
You're
you
waiting
can do
for the
both.
opening.
I think you can do both. You can listen to what someone's saying and still prepare what you need to say and
Right.
wait for the right time to strike, which is what I usually have to do.
Sound like a viper.
I know.
Striking. But really the idea about this is twofold. One is not to gossip, not to blame, complain. Don't talk too much, especially not about things that aren't meaningful. And the second is to listen. Listen with intention to understand about what the other person's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, in terms of Stoic practices, is to toss away ego and vanity. And I'm going to go into a quote with this one. I think quotes really drive home these practices sometimes.
When you toss it away, though, do you scratch out your address and stuff? Sorry, that was me interjecting. And
Well, yes. You're picturing yourself tossing your ego and vanity
No,
into
what
the
happened-
compost bin? Would that be where it goes? Or do you
or the
recycle
garbage
it?
or whatever. Yeah, probably recycling. You want to take care of it. But that's a perfect example of me having a good joke in my head and not wanting to wait for you to say another single word before interjecting it.
That was an example of you having a good joke in your head?
Well, you laughed, didn't you?
I did.
I thought you laughed.
I did, at the sheer absurdity of how it did not relate at all to what I was saying. So tossing away ego and vanity. So this quote again from Epictetus: "Throw out your conceited opinions, for it's impossible for a person to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows." And I think a lot of teachers would relate to this. I know that there's a time in our lives, particularly usually when we're teenagers, when we start to think we know everything, and it really closes our mind off to learning more.
Yeah.
Number 9, don't get disturbed and buy tranquility instead. And I'm not saying go out and buy something.
Yeah, don't pay for it.
Don't go buy
Yeah.
a Zen garden.
I mean, no, don't
I
do
never
that.
promised you a Zen garden.
I never. Yeah, that's a good one.
I know, right?
Good one.
Was it Rose Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was. You got it.
Yeah, that's that whole part where I have these automatic songs in my head when anything remotely resembles song lyrics. So we shouldn't let small things make us angry. And it's that whole idea of we can't control other people's actions, but we can definitely control our reactions. So Stoics basically want to stay calm in the midst of a storm and not get disturbed. So smile and focus on what needs to be done and move on. And it'll save you a lot of worry energy. And you'll realize that small things that usually irritate you are not even worth the hassle.
It's true. Usually the things that irritate you are a colossal waste of time. Because it makes you irritated. It's your choice whether or not you want to be irritated, right?
It is.
Anyway.
It absolutely is. It, again, controlling your reactions.
It's one to grow on from Jeff.
I realized I'd provided a reference in our first part of this, but I did want to give another shout out to the reference for this Stoicism 101, great website, as well as holsti.com. And a lot of the content for these 2 episodes around Stoicism I drew from those sources, so I wanted to give credit there. Number 10 is to consolidate your thoughts in writing, and I think this is something a lot of people have taken the practice of journaling.
Or poetry.
Poetry, yes. Well, that
Yeah.
is also a form of writing. We can write down questions for ourselves, examine our own assumptions of the world.
Remember when you were like a teenager and stuff, and you had like a love interest or whatever, and one of the things you would always do instead of talking to them face to face was write them a letter.
I know.
Isn't that interesting?
Wonder
that
what the
we did
method,
that?
I wonder what the method is nowadays.
I don't know. Probably texting.
Nowadays, now that
Nowadays.
we're old and we have no idea how people communicate with one another.
Probably texting and emails and Snapchats and stuff like that.
Yes.
But I mean, it's interesting though that was our go-to, and you would always like make it really super personal, fold it up in this weird little origami.
Yeah, we had some pretty cool
envelope.
folds. I'm for our listeners, I'm a secret origami expert.
Sign it all with TFA.
I
True
can really.
friend always.
Oh yeah, BFF.
Yeah, there you go.
They still say that, I guess.
I don't know. Do they? I can't really.
I think so.
I can't keep up with the kids these days.
I'm not really an origami expert. I just can make a crane. I can make one mean crane, though.
I thought you were going to go into a joke
Sometimes.
there for some reason.
He's not always mean. Sometimes I'll draw a smiley face on him.
I
But
can't
he's
make
mean in a
anything.
good way.
I can make a mean airplane, a paper airplane.
Yeah?
That's about it. It's
Yeah?
like a jet, supersonic.
I never got that down. I always made the wings too big and it just did a nosedive.
teach
But
you.
it looked nice.
I'll teach you after this podcast.
Yeah. Could you do it sharp enough that you could get another kid in the eye?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I have. I've gotten kids in the eye, in the ear.
So back to consolidating your thoughts in writing. You know, it's a great way to express gratitude. A lot of people will take the time just to write down maybe 3 things from the day that they're grateful for. It just really helps us focus on the positive in our life. All right, take the time to journal. It's not hard. Get it done. It's going to help you.
Some people use it as a practice, like and as a form of meditation and stuff.
Well, that's right,
Like my
Chad.
sister does, like she just journals and writes page after page after page until something really, significant pops out or whatever. It's really interesting.
Well, that's right. I think isn't there a book called Morning Pages or something of that nature?
Morning rages, I think it is.
Rages.
Rages. Rage.
What do you just look in the mirror and rage on?
You just rage on. Rage against the machine.
Number 11 of Stoic practices is to see the opportunity in challenging situations.
You mean like to learn from them? From
Yes.
challenging situations?
Well, and when a challenge arises, see what opportunity could be hidden within that. A lot of people will say that, the obstacles are the way.
Yeah.
They're part of the path of life.
Well, that's what, Anthony Bourdain always said. Who wants to have like a really boring vacation where nothing happens, where nothing negative happens or nothing, to cause some kind of hardship? It doesn't really make it memorable, does it?
It does not, Jeff. You are most correct.
I know.
Very wise.
It's not
No.
me, it's Bourdain. I just remembered it.
But the idea behind this is really just how do we look at challenges? Some people just see it as something that's going to block them, but other people say, how does this change my path? How does this provide me with some sort of opportunity to grow? Maybe it's, dealing with a difficult individual and it allows us to hone our skills around negotiation or just how to be compassionate or perhaps patience and tolerance. All of those virtues can be honed by challenging situations. So Stoics search for an opportunity for growth in every challenge, and no matter what life threw at them, they said they had a choice. They could be blocked or they could fight through them.
I typically try to avoid challenging situations, but when they do arise, it is good to rise to them, and not cower and kind of run away from them. Rise to it and tackle it and fulfill your potential,
Yes, well said.
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. It's going to be a long, long sentence.
You're
but-
going to love this next one, and I'm
Okay.
just going to rub it right in your face.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Jeez, that sounds really...
Stoic.
No. Evil.
Number 12,
Mm-hmm.
because if you recall, in part 1, you explained how...
The car?
unstoic I was, if that were to be a word. But you said I was not stoic at all.
Did I say that?
Yeah,
when did
think
I say
so.
that?
I'll have to re-listen, but I
in the
believe
first podcast of this two-parter. Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
As opposed to just 5 minutes ago.
Did I say I was stoic?
I think that's where we got to. We
All
thought
right.
that perhaps you were a little bit more stoic than I.
Oh, I don't know about that one, but let's hear what you have to say.
Number 12 is to imagine the worst that could happen.
Yeah.
Who does that in our relationship?
You do that every single day.
I do.
Every moment
And
of every single day.
The Stoic says nothing happens to the wise man against his expectation. Seneca actually says that.
You catch maybe like 5% of 100% of the things that you worry about, though.
I know, but that makes it worth it, right?
Does it? Because you're not really present in the situation if you're worrying about the situation.
Yeah, but there's a lot that's said nowadays about being positive and the power of positive thinking and optimism, and people write out affirmations, but the Stoics believe differently. They felt that type of practice invited passivity into our lives.
Passivity.
Right. So it was important that rather than deny the harsh realities of life, they decide to imagine the worst events that could possibly happen to them and then allow themselves to plan for how they may react. Premeditatio malorum.
Premeditatio malorum.
Premeditation of evils.
Interesting.
So not only does it allow you to prepare yourself mentally, for what that outcome may be, but also ways to deal with it. How will you react in order to mitigate the impacts?
But you can get into situations in life that could be considered evil that you have absolutely no dress rehearsal for, no matter how much you try to prepare for it or premeditate for something evil happening. You can never really know exactly how it's going to play out.
Well, no, you can never predict that serial killer that comes up behind you in a dark alley. And no, those types of things you can't. But there are a lot of scenarios that you can plan for and predict, right?
Like what?
Like our house catching on fire, and what would the escape route be?
We were supposed to get a fire extinguisher today.
I know. That's why I had to use that one as an example.
Okay, I see what you...
Care
I
to
see
knock
where you're
on
getting
wood
at
that our
now.
house doesn't catch on fire tonight? We do have another fire extinguisher. I just felt we needed a second one.
But in order to really prepare for something like that, do you really need to premeditate on it? Don't you just have to make a quick decision to buy a fire extinguisher?
Well, I'm not saying you actually go into a full-on meditation, sitting down and contemplating the
paying it some mind.
origin of the universe and the.
So basically, paying a future disaster some mind could
It helps you plan
make it
for
not
it.
happen.
I mean, that's what it's all about, the planning for it, and also to prepare yourself mentally for that
Okay.
potential outcome.
Okay, I'm on board now. I understand it.
So it's not only important to prepare for success, but also be ready for failure.
Yes.
And think, if that took place, what's the worst that could happen? And then go through that. And that way, perhaps the worst that can happen isn't in reality as bad as what you could imagine.
Right. Very well said, honey.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a painful one to get through, but we got through it.
No, it was good. I thought it's good to discuss these things and not just say them. It's like I need to understand, and sometimes perhaps I sit in for some of our listeners who are in the same boat. I don't know.
That have no idea what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. That are just layman's to all this Stoicism stuff.
I was really, feeling pretty smug when I read that one, because I am somebody who likes to plan for the worst.
And I love that you do.
Well,
I've gotten used to it.
I like to be prepared, and it's served me well throughout my life, throughout my career, that you plan for all eventualities, and then when they pop up, you're ready to deal with them.
You're ready to deal. You're ready to. Yep, makes sense.
Number 13 in the Stoic practices is to play your given cards well.
Okay, so the cards that you've got, make sure you know every play. Like if you're playing crazy eights, you know when to play that 8 or make somebody pick up 2. Right? You know the right time to play that 2 on a 2 to make them pick up 4.
So what's the queen? Is that pick up 5?
Queen is pick up 5, depending on who you're playing with.
Is it a queen of spades only?
It is the queen of spades only.
Actually, so this one isn't literal cards, but that was a great little dive into the world of crazy eights.
Yep.
But this is the idea that it's thinking of life like poker. The hands that we're dealt are by chance, but we don't have say in what we get, but we get to decide how we're going to play those cards we're dealt.
Same can be said with crazy eights. It's true.
Okay.
Cards you're given are the cards you play.
An admirable player tries to play their given hands the best they can.
That's right.
And then they accept the outcome calmly and just focus on what you can control. And I think that's something I practice in my life, and I think you do too, is there is some recognition that certainly things are beyond our control.
And that's when you throw your cards. But you still accept that you lost.
I really feel like you're missing the
No,
metaphor
I'm not.
here.
I'm just using a different analogy, that's all.
I see.
I am getting it. I really, truly am. It makes sense.
Okay. So you don't control what happens in your life, but you have the power to choose what you will do, what your reaction will be in given situations.
Yes.
Number 14 of Stoic practices is to remember that nothing endures. And I think another way that this is commonly said is that this too shall pass.
Yes.
And
love heals all, or time heals all wounds. I think that's how it goes. And it is true.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that there's a reason why there are so many variations of how this same message is conveyed. It's because there is a lot of truth to it. Oftentimes when I'm in a difficult situation, I will contemplate whether or not it will have a lot of meaning in a day's time, a week's time, a year's time.
How does it fit in the
Right.
grand picture?
And then if you really want to go, to deep dive into that, it's to think about where is it in the grand scheme of the overall universe.
Right.
I mean, life is finite, and
Don't find we do that enough,
How important is this moment to all those things? So if you become very anxious about something, whatever it may be in your life, that in a situation you're facing, perhaps try to get a little perspective on what that will mean down the road, and whether or not when you're in your golden years and you reflect back, is that something that is really going to have made a difference in the grand trajectory of your life?
Yes, it's the moments you remember that make memories. So that, when
that one was a very wise one.
Yeah.
It's the moments we remember that make memories.
It's true. The ones we forget become forgotten.
And they are
you
not
never
memories.
know, and you never know what moment will make a memory. I mean,
and you certainly don't know the ones you've forgotten.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes you think, okay, I'm going to go away on a big trip and then with my family, and that's going to be the memory that I'm going to have the rest of my life. But maybe it's just laying on the couch reading a book, snuggling with somebody. That might be the memory. You never know the memories you're going to make.
Well, that's right. I think based on what you said, it's oftentimes when you speak with your children, I think that gives you some insight into what is most important.
Yeah.
I know sometimes when we think that these grand events that we plan are the things that will stick in their memory, but when you ask them, what was the most enjoyable thing that we did this week, or it'll often be surprising.
Yeah.
And it could be just the smallest thing, the time you took to listen or to read a book together.
Exactly.
Not the big trip or the...
Thank you for illustrating the thought I tried to convey earlier, because you just explained it perfectly.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Number 15 of the Stoic practices is to love whatever happens. If we resist reality and we always think things are going against us, it causes a lot of suffering. And so the idea around this is really that we have to acknowledge that there's something bigger than us. Nature is complex, and it's impossible to tell when anything happens whether it's good or bad, because we don't know where it will lead eventually. And I often reflect on different things in my life that at the time I perhaps felt were devastating, but they led me down a path to where I am today. And because I am in a very, a wonderful place in my life, then I can't look back on anything that brought me to this point and regret it, because it was all part of the path that got me to where I am today.
You should learn something from every moment in life, basically, whether it's minuscule or grandiose. You can always learn from good and bad experiences.
Right.
I'm going to put that on a T-shirt too.
It'll have to be a big T-shirt.
It'll be a big. I'll put some on the back and on the sleeve too.
Number 16 is don't get played like a puppet.
Unless you're Jim Henson.
Well, he's the puppeteer.
True, but he's playing with the puppets.
The idea of this is don't let other people control how you feel. Don't let some offhand remark made by a colleague or a stranger impact you. It's not...
People do that so easily, though.
They do, and they often aren't really focused on you at all. A lot of times, most times, when people are angry or upset, it's really something that's going on in their own world that's causing that to occur, and it's really just being projected out to you. So, don't let people jerk you around like a puppet.
Yeah.
Cut the strings that pull your mind and take back what's meant to be yours.
That is one of the ones that are so easily said, but so difficult to do sometimes.
I think I'm pretty good at this one.
Impulse, right?
am.
People have impulses that they act upon without really thinking about it, kind of like Hamlet,
I think though, as I grow older, wait, let's go back to the Hamlet comment.
Yeah, he was impulsive with his actions and never really thought about the direct results of things that he was doing or saying.
Like death?
Yeah, well, when he found out that his father, who was killed by his brother, is now dating his ex-wife. I can't remember.
It sounds like a reality
exactly
show.
how. I can't.
It sounds like the plot of.
It does actually. Anyways,
maybe on Big Brother.
He just never really thought about what he was doing until after he did it. That's all. That's the end result there.
Do you think George Orwell would roll over in his grave at the fact that there's a show called Big Brother and what it is?
No, probably not, because he kind of predicted this kind of madness.
Yeah, maybe he'd be like, see, told ya.
Told ya.
And now you're getting entertainment out of it.
That would be his t-shirt, told ya.
Number 17, which is the last of our practices, is to play the equanimity game.
I don't even know what that word means.
It means that, we all get caught off guard from time to time. And not just by the big things, but sometimes by the little things that build up in life. And the idea is not to lose balance and become irritable and grouchy. There's a bit of a theme through these practices, and it's the idea of not reacting, to choose to hold ourselves in a place of calm and return to balance. There's actually a modern philosopher, Brian Johnson, and he calls this the equanimity game. And the rules are simple. Notice when you're off balance, when something in life has thrown you off balance, then see how fast you can catch yourself and correct yourself. Bring yourself back to a place of equanimity.
Okay. All right.
And
that makes sense.
It is important to take a step back and really focus when you're experiencing an emotion, recognizing it. Sometimes recognizing anxiety or anger, that in of itself can be enough to make it
You can use the
subside.
analogy of painting a picture. Sometimes you have to step back to see what you've created.
Yes.
Huh? See what needs to be added and what needs to be taken away.
That's a really great analogy.
That's going on a t-shirt too. No, it's
gonna
actually
have to
going
make-
into a painting. But
to make a lot of t-shirts. So I hope what you'll do from this is take one of these practices or more and put them into action, because it's one thing to read and listen about these types of things, but once you put them into action, that's when they stick. And philosophers warn us not to be satisfied with actual just learning, but to add practice and then train ourselves to put it into our world and make it a way of life.
yeah.
So Jeff, we have a quick moment for you to give us your random tip.
Well, my random tip is very, very, simple this week. It's basically don't buy cheap phone chargers. I've learned it the hard way, and believe me, people, just splurge on the good quality phone charger that will last a little longer. And here's another quick little tip. Just wrap that duct tape around it right away as soon as you buy it, so that it doesn't have a chance to just bend and break, because especially the Apple product ones, I'll tell you something, they break easy. So buy a good one, spend the money. I know it might not last, but it'll last longer than the dollar store ones, and that's your tip.
You bought but you bought like 3 of the dollar store ones.
Do you want to know why I did that, honey? Because I thought maybe out of these army of cheap phone chargers, there will be one that lives up to what I want it to be, and none of them actually did.
I know. Well, the cords were super long, so that was an attractive selling feature
got me.
of these. Yeah, because having a long
There's still
cord,
a couple more I need to try, and then the entire legion of them would be, obsolete. So
Well, at least they're inexpensive. But
Anyway, that's not much of a tip, but it is a tip.
yeah, I think it was a little bit of a rant. But thanks for listening, everyone. Remain stoic.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
Be sure to check out past episodes and subscribe to keep up with what's new.
You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, and why not leave a review?
You can also follow InfoQuench on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Till next time.